Evening, and welcome to my second Get Up and Grow challenge. We've unfortunately had some technical difficulties, so this can't be broadcast live right now, but we've decided to go ahead and record anyway. So thank you for coming back here and watching the recording. Welcome. My name is Sinta Ebersohn, and I'm the founder of Get Up and Grow. And how this is going to work is I'm going to give you some valuable lots of it actually. We're going to talk about art, triggers, what we can do with them, how we can handle them, and then one this just great and grounded by a challenge with all the technical problems, but here we are. And I'm the founder of Get Up and Grow, and just to give you a bit of background, my father was divorced about 7 years ago, just more than 7 years ago. As a matter of fact, been working as a mentor. I spent my entire life studying business, all kinds of mentoring therapy, coaching, counseling. It's brought me to this point in my life. I really decided it's necessary to launch and make work together through all and any kinds of adversities that you face in your life or that you have faced in your past. So whatever has ever knocked you down in your life, learn from it so that we can grow out of it better. So that's why we are. I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but on my social media platforms, I know some of you have seen it and responded to it. I posted a short video with a tiny little bit of information to give you an idea of what the content topics are that we're going to be covering in Get Up and Grow. Now, the spectrum is huge. There's actually no limit to it. There's so much that we can learn. There's so much material, so many tools and resources that I'll be sharing with you in this video. Absolutely incredible. Part of my short videos that are around about a minute long that I post every day on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can find it everywhere. Just search for Sinta Ebersohn. I'm the only one out there with that name, as far as I know. You'll find me easily. So some of the topics that I posted this week was about triggers, was about opening your heart, closing your heart. Those are the things that I wanted to talk about this evening. So let's start with your heart, and I want to ask you a question. How much of this is true about you? Do you dwell on past relationships? Are you perhaps holding on to pain from the past? Or are you holding a grudge? Do you have some issues trusting people? Do you feel shy? Do you feel lonely? Do you have emotions all bottled up? Are you perhaps struggling with commitment? What about procrastination? Do you feel an act defensive? Or maybe lack empathy? Do you sometimes feel anxious or stressed? Do you push others away from you? Are you afraid of rejection? Or do you minimize yourself and put other people first all the time? How many of these things are true about you? And they are true about all of us, and I resonate with so many of the things that I mentioned. But these things are signs that you've closed your heart, that your heart is blocked. And that's what I see in the video that I posted today. Everything that we have to offer, our loved ones, the people around, comes from our heart. And everything that we receive from people, from the world, comes via our heart with gratitude. And if at some stage in your life you decided to close off your heart to protect yourself, to keep yourself hurt, you've not only closed your heart off to love and feelings, you've actually also closed off your heart to prevent you from really giving everything that you have, really giving freely and fully of yourself. And you've also closed off your heart from receiving everything that you deserve, all the abundance out there, and the joy that you deserve. You can't receive all of that. You close off your heart. So the first thing I would very much like to do tonight is to invite you to open your heart. And I will give you a little visualization to help. Now, visualization is for you to close your eyes, if that's what you feel if you're comfortable with that, and imagine what I'm telling you. Try to visualize it. Imagine that you see in front of you that's happening as I'm telling you the story. And for some people, it's not so easy to visualize. You can just imagine it or pretend that it's happening. And pretend, I mean, in a positive way, not that you are resistant to it. Just imagine as if it is happening. Just say that it is happening. So let's try this to open our hearts for a minute. Have an open heart. Yes. So close your eyes. Focus on breathing. Breathe in, breathe out. Comfortably at your own pace. And then I would like you to tune into your body. Feel your body from your head down to your butt, also down. Just feel it. And then watch your very little body. Focus on your heart. It helps you to put your hand on your heart. What does it feel? Do you feel warm? Maybe you can associate the color with it. I would like to associate red with my heart. Any color that comes to mind, let's associate. You can take a couple of breaths into your heart. And as you breathe out, imagine that color flowing from your heart all the way into the rest of your body. Just let that color flow into your torso, into your head, arms to your hands and fingertips, down your body, all the way down your leg. And for me, the color is red. And say to yourself, my heart is open. My heart is open. Give all that I can do. See through it. Well, that visualization I've just done is just one example of the things. Visualizations, affirmations, those are just some of the things that we talk about and teach you to teach you about in the Github. I'm sure many of those are familiar with you, but happen to do it with somebody, like watching a video at the moment, or a group of people, like we would be doing in the game. All right. So the big thing on the agenda is triggers. I'm going to be talking about mental health triggers, emotional triggers. Is something that affects the emotional state significantly, causing extreme distress or overwhelm. Trigger is not just something that makes you feel uncomfortable or rubs you up the wrong way, but it's really something disturbing or a reminder of a previous traumatic experience. So a trigger is something serious that we need to address. And in psychology, we differentiate between two kinds: internal triggers that happen within us and external triggers that are in the environment around. Examples of internal triggers are anger, sadness, shame, and even positive. Then there are external triggers in our environment, like a person, something that a person say, do, places, places, and trigger time. Also, an external. And our senses, our eyes, our sight, our smell, our taste, our hearing. All our senses trigger externally. And then something like significance, party, Christmas or something, Mother's Day party, that can be triggers also. And then of course media, things that we see in articles that you read in the newspaper, all kinds of media, especially in this so reliant on social media. Kevin Spring, who is the author of an amazing book called Recovery is My Best Friend, said that triggers are like little psychic explosions that crash through the avoidance, and it brings the dissociated, avoided trauma back into consciousness, suddenly and unexpectedly. Now that listen carefully, triggers are like tiny little psychic explosions. They crash through the dissociated and avoided trauma, bring it back to the consciousness, suddenly and unexpectedly. So a trigger is something that happens to you very quickly, when you least expect it, and when you don't understand it, but it's something from the past that you've dissociated from, something that you're avoiding to face, like a trauma, for example, brings it back into your consciousness. So let's look at a few examples. What kind of things trigger you? Think for yourself what kind of things trigger you, and maybe write them down if you want to. And if we were in a live session, I would ask you to write them in the comments. So I'll mention some examples. Let's say, for example, that you were hurt at some stage, and you see that person again, that perpetrator, that might trigger you. You run into that person, you see that person, or somebody else talks about that person or mentions that person's name, it very well triggers you. Another example is a certain place. Go to a place where you've had a bad experience. For example, if you were in a car accident and you are driving in a car, you have a flashback upset you. Or it's a graveyard where you were in a lifetime. That might be what triggered you. Another example is specific times of the day. Let's say as a child, you are a lot in dusk. My trigger you all the time that the lights have to be put out. That might trigger you. Because it's a specific time of day that's associated with food. Another example of a time of day actually is if you have an eating disorder. And it becomes time to have a meal. Because of the disorder. Another thing is words. If you were told things as a child or even later in life, irritating, down, and you hear those words again, they might trigger you. For example, a rather common theme amongst children was stupid. People who called them as a child in a situation. If somebody says to you, oh, you're stupid, you should be ashamed of yourself. That might be true. Another example is that I've dealt with quite a lot in relationships, and especially as a divorce mentor, is cheating, infidelity. If you confronted your partner about infidelity, and the partner continuously responded with, I am not cheating, I haven't cheated on you, I am not cheating, and you realize that they were cheating, the next time you hear those words, it will trigger you. Or in different contexts, in different situations, you hear those words. Those are just examples. I want to invite you for a moment to think about the things that trigger you. Write them down. Maybe some recent memories that you have about situations or circumstances where you things happen to them. Make a note of it and write it down because you need to know. I've mentioned some examples. For example, cases very common that people tell the sense smell something that makes them feel. Sometimes they feel triggered, but they don't know why. And analyze the situation and realize it was a smell something. It was new, trauma, loss, something that was good. So smell is also very interesting. Music, specific songs, might also trigger. Remember, triggers can be positive feelings. You could have a favorite song, like memories of a party that you did younger, and that might trigger happy emotions and happy feelings. Fulfillment and satisfaction. You might hear a song that was a favorite song that you would partner, and that might trigger you to feel love and cherished. So remember the triggers can be positive. In significant dates, especially if you've lost a loved one and the birthday comes up, and that date might be trigger. Look at what you do when you trigger. So now you have a list of things, some examples. Let's take the next step. So what do you do? How do you feel? We have some basic emotions that we want to describe. How we feel. We're going to use some different words for them now. Trigger might make you feel sad. Trigger might make you feel angry. Trigger might make you feel afraid. Some triggers might make you feel ashamed. And you might also feel guilty with some triggers. And again, you might have related or excited or joyful with some triggers. Let's look at the negative triggers. This is the question you have to ask yourself. Sad, what do you do? Angry, what do you do? Do you lash out? Do you shout? Get physically violent? Do you actually run away? Do you fight back? Oh, we can feel so ashamed. So these things make us feel shame. We reprimand for something in an insensitive way. The words that remind you of something that you did wrong in the past, in a way that something happened to you. You hear those words again, might trigger the shame about what you have done. Guilt about what you should have done and what you didn't do. Pray, apologize, blush, you don't hide. Some of us try to hide it, don't you? Some of us lash out and retaliate. Some of us burst into tears and fall down on our knees and beg for forgiveness. There are all kinds of ways that we do that. And then I'm back to the happy emotions, the positive ones. What do? Do you feel happy, excited, or joyful? Do you jump up and down? Do you dance around? Do you sing? Do you laugh? Do you smile? Do you run and hug somebody? How do you behave? Do you have a happy trigger? Do you feel content, excited, satisfied? And lots of ways that we behave. It's important for us to identify what triggers us, and secondly, to identify how we behave. And the third question I want to ask about triggers is, what do you want when you feel that trigger? When you are triggered like that, for example, what do you want? What do you feel that you need in that moment? And then take some time to write them down while I mention some examples. Therefore, you have a need to feel safe. You want to be a little sure that it's really good. Is that possible? What about when you are angry? You want to be. You want somebody to admit that they were wrong. You want acknowledgement that you are right. You want people to learn angry. You want them to stand there and allow you to shout at them and come down on them like a tin bricks. What is it that you want in that moment that you're triggered? What is it that you need when you're triggered? You need to be consoled. You want to get to love when you're finished. You need somebody to tell you that you're enough, you're not bad. Guilty, you need somebody to tell you that you're good. What you do to love. It is that trigger you good. That you feel really pain. These things that you feel. So let's go back and think about that. Then I invite you to do this with open heart. receive the information that I'm offering you with an open heart. Doesn't have to be not dangerous. So, you see it with an open heart. Also, how it will be in our safe and secure. Support each other as we look at us in our own work, personal work. Because life is not so. We need to get up, look at the situation so we want to learn from it, we can grow out of it. And then we do better. Like I said last time, and like I say all the time, when we do better, we thrive. And everybody around us thrives as well. So to go for it today. What can we do if we are emotional? Triggers is a word that we use all the time. Really instances. What is one thing to recognize, like we've just done? Part of the process is to ask ourselves what triggers us. And what do we do? Let's start. Once we know that, what do we do then? That's what comes. In psychology, again, we distinguish between primary emotions and secondary. Now, the difference is that the primary emotions is the immediate experience that we have, the raw, honest experience that we have. The secondary emotion is our reaction to the primary emotion. The feelings that we have, the reaction that we have to the experience of our treatment. Our primary emotions are the things that we feel. Anger, shame, sadness, fear, hurt, excitement, happiness. Those are the primary emotions. Those are the immediate things that we experience when we are feeling. They are honest, they are raw, they are unedited. They are also felt somewhere in the body. The research has shown that we always trace back the primary emotion to feeling, a physical sensation somewhere in the body. And last, in the first program challenge, I also talked about trauma and how it sits in our body, how it carries in our body. If you're interested to know more about that, you can go to my YouTube channel, that's also under my name, Sinta Ebersohn, and you can find a playlist of Build and Github and Grow. And you find last week's first Github challenge. There's a lot of amazing information. That's where I talk about trauma, what we do with it in our heads, and what we do with it in our bodies. But it sits in our body. Traumatic experiences are stored in our body, and we have contact with all kinds of therapies. Back to the right now. The primary emotions are the ones that you always feel something in the body. Those primary emotions you need to invest in. Because the primary emotions give us messages. They're going to tell us why we are triggered, the reasons behind it, where they come from. They have a purpose of guiding us to a better future. Those are the primary emotions. The secondary emotions are our reactions to the primary trigger, and they are things like frustration, Anger can also be secondary. I'm going to talk about that a bit more later. But the secondary emotions are the ones we need to learn to regulate. We spoke about that also in the first challenge. How important it is for us to be able to regulate. And they are again tools we can do to regulate. Those things I'm going to share with you in great detail. There's so much that I've got planned for you to go through. There's so much learning to do. There's so much information I can share. Thank you, absolutely. There's a world to be discovered out there for getting up from any kind of adversity, learning from it and growing out of it. Cultivating resilience. That's what I'm all about. Cultivating resilience. That's what we're going to do in Github. So back to the primary emotions and secondary emotions. It's important to realize that the primary emotions are our immediate responses, and they make us feel vulnerable and unsafe. And that's why we have secondary emotions that we exhibit. And we are generally, people are generally much more aware of these secondary because they would feel safer. You need to regulate them, and it's easier to learn to regulate than it might be to go and investigate and uncover the root of the problem. So I said I wanted to tell you something else about anger. Anger, for example, can be a primary emotion as well as a secondary. But as a primary emotion, anger can be a good thing because it can be used to protect yourself or defend yourself. But anger as a secondary emotion is a bad thing. It's negative because as a secondary emotion, we use anger to lash out or to hurt someone else. So then it's not a good thing. But as a primary emotion, it can be a good thing. And that's why it's important for us to uncover primary emotions when we are reacting with secondary. I have a 7 action step. Seven action steps, and I'm going to go through in detail. But I also want to tell you that there will be more information around this. I'll elaborate on this in the second series about doing work, series about getting up front, getting knocked down. The 7 action steps. The moment you realize that first thing you need to do is stop. Just stop right there in the moment. Stop immediately. The moment you realize you've been triggered, stop. The next thing you need to do is to interrupt that trigger or regulate that emotion. Very important. Stop and then interrupt that trigger and regulate that emotion. And this is something I'm going to detail in the Github community because this is something that's unique to every person. I will introduce you to a lot of practices and exercises, but you'll know what works best for you. You all have a good way, and the way that works best to interrupt our triggers, to regulate our emotions. For some it's breathing, for some it's removing themselves from the situation, all sorts of things, but I'm going to detail about that in the growth. The third thing you have to do is give yourself space. Buy yourself some space so that you can sit with your trigger and you can gently digest what is happening to you. And I have advice that I always give all my clients. If you're in a moment where you realize you've been triggered, you manage to stop and interrupt that trigger, regulate your emotion, even if it's ever so slightly, so that you can just be in control. Give yourself some space and time to sit with it and digest what has happened by saying this or something to this effect to the other person or the other people who are involved or who are present. There is no way for me to respond right now that won't either escalate this conflict or hurt you. So please allow me to take some space and time to regulate and resolve. I'm going to repeat that again. When you're in a situation and you realize you've been triggered, stop, interrupt or regulate. Give yourself the space to sit with the feeling, just what happened by saying this, something like this. Right now, there's no way for me to respond right now that is not either going to escalate this conflict or hurt you. And I don't want to, don't do either one of the two. So please allow me to take some space and time to regulate the music. So it's a perfect thing. It's a beautiful way to say time. I cannot respond right now in a way that's not going to hurt you or escalate this conflict. So please allow me to take some space and time so that I can regulate my emotions and resolve my trigger. I will come back to it. Does that make sense? Does that sound like a good idea? I think it's a perfect way, and I've seen it so many times. A lot of people who facilitated conflict so many times between people really say that. It's a kind, compassionate thing to say. It's an authentic, open heart thing to say. I can't do better now. I can't give you a response. It's not going to escalate this situation. But I can just reflect myself. That is in front of my heart. And that is the beauty of what we can do. Even when your heart open, able to give that response. Bear that in mind. Incidentally, I have decided to draw up notes on this challenge, and I will post the notes with a summary of the details that I shared with you, the information, the tips, the processes, and I will post them in the Github and Grow. So if you join the community, you can get all the tips and hints in and summarize them. So I've been triggered. I've managed to stop, managed to interrupt and regulate myself, and I've managed to buy myself some time, give myself some space so I can sit with what happened and then I respond to the other person or the people or the situation. Then step 4, 5, and 6, go ahead. It's still here for a moment. Look at it. Examples of this. You might go to some examples that you have. So step 4 is to just acknowledge to yourself that you're triggered. And this might sound simple, but it's a very important step. It's a very important step. Acknowledge to yourself that you're triggered. It's the most freeing, liberating thing to say to yourself, okay, I was triggered. Triggered. That's all that happened. Okay, I was triggered. Just acknowledge it for yourself. Not anybody else. Acknowledge it for yourself. You will find it liberating. It will take a load of the shoulder. So acknowledge that And remember, it's easy for us to blame somebody else, situation, circumstances. It's important to remember that the trigger is something that happened within you. It's about you. It's my stuff that triggered you. Not the thing that the other person said or did, or the situation or the circumstances. Something within you. That's that one emotion that was triggered, that previous experience that was triggered. It's a bond. That's important knowledge. Something new, something in myself. Nothing to do with that I heard this, or I saw this, or I experienced this. Then what you need to do is, instead of being disappointed in yourself, oh, God, I couldn't do this. What's wrong with me? Why do I get triggered so easily? Instead of doing that, just having time to approach this trigger. Because this trigger is something amazing. You're going to uncover about yourself once you've done that, once you've discovered what exactly it was. It's going to make a world of difference. So please don't beat yourself up again. Please don't feel guilty that you just approach it and approach visits of mind. Because this is what it is. Explore it, uncover it, discover it. And with doing that, you can gain an understanding of yourself, a way better understanding of yourself, who you are, your makeup, what your needs are, what your boundaries are. These triggers will teach you so much about yourself that you're going to develop so much insight into your own being, your own behavior. It's going to be incredible. And this brings us back to our behavioral patterns. This was something I spoke about in the first Untitled Chapter. Our behavioral patterns are incredible. They are based on things that we desire. Open heart, or our closed heart. It's coming from closed heart. But those determine our behavior. The better the understanding, the more insight we have in our own behavior, the more we grow. We do better and thrive. I can't say this enough. You need to grow. You need to learn from our experiences because that's the only way we can do it. The only way we can get to a point where we can thrive. And when everybody around us will thrive too. No matter what it was that you're going through. We're going through, or that you are going through, what adversity, hardship, challenge you're going through. It applies to everything. It works for everything. We need to learn more about ourselves, understand ourselves, insight, our own behavior. All right, so let's look at a few examples. Remember I said you need to acknowledge the trigger. You need to then discover what it is that we have learned about this trigger. And then I'm going to go back to an example that I used previously. Words, phrases. Because this is something that I have seen so often. So many people be called stupid. On the street. What? On stupid? What were you thinking? Those kind of remarks. I've come across so many people, and I've actually in my studies come across case studies that have mentioned this in something very similar. It often happens in our childhood where we have an abusive parent, an abusive teacher, some adult or role model or sports coach that has a way of speaking to us that is they say harsh words, and it hurts us, and it makes us feel ashamed. And then we behave in ways we cringe, we cry, we withdraw, we go hide, minimize ourselves. Are you stupid? One of those phrases that is used so often. So let's look at that. Let's say I am a person who experienced that in my childhood. Somebody in my life say that to me so often that it hurt me so much that I felt so humiliated and ashamed that it wouldn't be. So if I hear somebody call me, say that to me, oh, you're stupid. Now, my primary emotion is shame. Shame, I'm vulnerable. My primary emotion of feeling ashamed makes me vulnerable and unsafe. So how do I respond to the secondary emotion? How do I react? Not my shoulder. Drop my head. Walk away quietly. Not be able to make eye contact with anybody because I'm sure. My whole body will illustrate and show. Trauma is the first time that happened, and second time happened once to today. I will behave the same way. I will hold my body in the same way because it's a behavior that I took on. And I needed to take on to cope with that situation, to survive that situation. So that's how I do it. That would be my second year. Embarrassed, humiliated. As a result of that, I felt shame. Somebody yelled at me, oh, you stupid. So, what have I done? Acknowledge that I was triggered. My kids were lived in the past and I uncovered a childhood memory. Where this came from. What this is rooted in. That gave me insight into why I living what I am, responding to the secondary emotion that I am. Now I understand. Now I have insight. Own behavior. What happens when I have that insight and understanding? I can take further steps. Go and work through that trauma. Or through the emotions and the results of that trauma. And there are loads and loads of processes to overcome the trauma like that. And I love to use the process. If it's a trigger, it's a charge, it's some kind of emotion. If it's a behavior or secondary emotion, is also charged. To neutralize it, so it becomes just something that happened to me that was bad, that shouldn't have happened. But I'm no longer triggered by it. And that ways to do that, and the few of these new processes that are available out there is just another one of the things I'm sure that we have. So that's one example. Let's take another example. Let's say you're in a car accident at some point in life. Doesn't matter how car accident, and you find yourself now as a passenger in another car with a reckless driver. What's the point? That you felt with that trip? Yeah, that this reckless driver also make an accident. So find the emotion, fear, and yeah, makes us feel vulnerable, unsafe. What do you do when you're afraid? Or what do I do when I'm afraid? Because remember, we all have different. There's no one size fits all or general rule or generic process that applies to everybody. So you for everyone. That's why we have to go through this process and uncover. So let's say others. Now I find myself a passenger in this car with a reckless driver, and I'm amazingly triggered because I'm afraid. Because I'm afraid of being in a car accident again and getting hurt. So how do I respond? With what secondary emotion do I, Sinta, respond when I'm afraid? What do I do when I'm afraid? I get angry. I assert myself because I want to protect myself. That's what I do. That's my secondary emotion. But that anger and assertiveness comes from fear, comes from being afraid of being hurt. Okay? And that's the message that I find in my trigger. My trigger, once I've acknowledged that I'm triggered, is telling you that you're afraid because you've had another previous experience that was bad, and that is now causing you to feel fear. That's the difference. So I'm standing up, being assertive, and I might be angry, and I might raise my voice and say, "Stop the car, I want to get out." And it's just because I'm afraid. But if I stand up for myself and I'm assertive and I say, "Stop the car, I'm getting out," I feel in control. I feel safe. I feel as if I can protect myself. So that's where my secondary emotion comes from. And then again, once I understand that, I can take any of a number of avenues to work through that, neutralize that, so that what happens. And if I say what happened again, what it means is that I won't raise my voice and shout, "Stop the car, I'm getting out." I need to tap the driver on the shoulder and say, do it without being triggered, having harsh actions that are, again, possibly things that might trigger the driver. Calm. Does that make any sense? This is another example. What about let's take So some things that can trigger us when we have victims, predators, ways to affect the challenge as well. There's emotional abuse, it's physical abuse, there's sexual abuse, there's financial abuse, all kinds of abuse. Domestic violence, for example, is a good example. Let's use domestic violence as an example. How do you take steps 4, 5, and 6 to neutralize it? And the 7 steps that I'm explaining to you now is just one of the ways you can do it. There are many out there, and I'll show you more about you if that will serve you or amazing way. Short practices, exercise. This is just a logic way to most helpful. Simple, it's not hard to remember. If you're triggered, stop, interrupt the regular. Just stop some space in time. So that you can be conscious. Not just stop, interrupt, give space, knowledge, previously talked about this. But the example I wanted to use was let's say, for example, domestic violence. Let's go with domestic violence. Let's say, for example, I experienced domestic violence, repeated domestic violence as a child. I was exposed to it over a period of time in my house, my family. I saw somebody physically abusive to another family member, and I saw that family member hurt and suffering, victim of other people. So that was a traumatic experience. Just to recap from the first chapter that I've been trying to Palmer, please go and watch but having been exposed to domestic violence over a period of time and now, as an adult, I find myself in a position where I am witnessing a couple having an argument. And the argument is escalating. They raise their voices, waving their arms around. And this looks so familiar to me. So similar to what I experienced in my childhood that I find triggered just like that. What is the primary emotion that I'm feeling as I'm triggered? It might be that there's going to be abuse happening. One of the parties are going to lose control and assault the other, abuse the other person. So it could be fear that this might be a repetition of what I'm so familiar with. It could be anger at the abuser, because I have felt anger my entire life that the one family member was abusing the other. So my primary trigger might be anger. Or my primary trigger might be sadness, because I'm sad for the family member that was abused and hurt and punished so much. I'm sad because I can relate to one of the parties in the couple that I'm seeing on the moment. as the victim or the one that's being hurt. So there are many ways that can trigger me. Those are my primary emotions. So let's look at all three of them and see what the secondary emotions are. If I'm feeling fear, if I'm triggered by fear, I might respond by leaving that place, getting out of it, because I'm afraid. I don't want to see this going that far. I don't want to be exposed to it, so I might escape, remove myself from the situation. If I'm triggered by anger, I might feel the need to go and interfere, to go and stop things, to go and confront the abusive party and say, stop this nonsense. Maybe to go and protect the one that's getting hurt or abused. That might come from anger. I might feel, I might feel driven, called to go and interfere, to save somebody, to protect somebody. If my trigger is sadness, my primary emotion is sadness, triggered by sadness, I might just sad for those people because my second emotion might just immense sadness. So it depends on what triggered, what my primary emotion was in the trigger. I am going to react with my second emotion. That is the insight. But these are just some examples that I've mentioned. I asked you to make some notes. Pay for your trigger, what you need. So look at those and consider what I've just discussed here. And again, I must just say, this is just an introduction to this. There's a world of information, and I will share so much with you. As new things come up, I will share. There's so much research that has been done about triggers. There's so many ways that we can do it. This is just an introduction to some kind of understanding about triggers. Again, I have to say, this is about ourselves. Triggers happen within us. It's not about the other person or the situation. It's about us. It's about we cross that. We won off the battle. It's not to say you triggered me or what you said triggered me. It's to say what you said triggered something in you. And that's my tongue. What you said triggered a primary emotion. What you said or what you did was just the catalyst in my trigger. And my trigger is something happening. That's why we need to understand it. That's why we have a duty to understand ourselves, understand what is going on inside of us. And the more we understand the more we understand their origin, the more we learn to neutralize them even better, the easier it becomes to recognize when we trigger. Because most of the time, we get triggered and we just rush in with our secondary emotions and we just go, wow, 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 wow. We don't even realize that we've actually just been triggered and that we need to do it. We just go from one emotional response to the other. But if we start working on our triggers, we gain knowledge and insight into ourselves. So recognize it. Start learning how to stop swap ourselves with emotion. But practice makes perfect, right? So the more we work on them, the more we understand them, the more we grow, the more we learn. And triggers are one of the best messengers for them. Remember what I said, what Karen Spring said, the author of Recovery is Not Best for Them. Triggers are like little psychic explosions, and they crash through back into our consciousness, suddenly unexpectedly. And they are the traumas that we've avoided and disassociated. And triggers just bring them to the forefront. There are these little parcels that are delivered to us. Messages. And when we receive these messages, grateful for them, receive them with an open heart and with care, without shame or guilt. That's not right. So, I want to use another example, something that just came to mind. I want to use a physical example because it's quite common to illustrate an example of a physical truth. Remember I said that traumatic experiences are stored in the body. Triggers can be physical. A secondary response. So it's not the senses. What about the smell? Let's go back to the smell. Let's say, for example, sitting in a restaurant, get a smell of cold. I just feel tense, stress. I don't know why. I smell the prawns, it's up front in my mind. I know that the smell is what I'm aware of. Let's say, for example, I'm allergic to shellfish. The smell of prawns would trigger me because I'm allergic to shellfish. So I'm feeling anxious. That's my primary response. I feel unsafe. I feel vulnerable because that stuff that I'm smelling is dangerous. So I would probably advise to go back into the and for example, the only way to know that I'm allergic to shellfish means that I would have experienced the allergic reaction. And that memory was traumatic because an allergy to shellfish has quite a severe reaction. Swell up, you might have breathing and so forth. So there would be an experience, a traumatic experience that was stored in my body. So when I smell shellfish, I'm stressed and anxious, and it might even go further into me feeling like I can't breathe, or me starting to hyperventilate. Because what triggered me is the memory of the allergic reaction that I had previously. So my primary emotion is anxiety, stress, anxiety, actually, fear, if you will, and my secondary emotion is stress, being worried, being uncomfortable, being upset about it. But it was a sensory trigger. It's not. wasn't something somebody said, or a situation, something, just a smell. So there's a memory stored in my body. That smell, that those effects that I have from the allergic reaction stored in my body. That's very interesting stuff. It's different and unique for each and every one of us. That's why it's so important to work with. But once I know that, I inquire why I feel it. I discovered why and where it comes from. I have now gained an understanding of my own behavior. Right there in this moment in my life. I now understand why. Now I can take next steps. Why? Hundreds and hundreds of processes and therapies that are available out. Simple practices and exercise. Sometimes it might be as simple as acknowledging it, understanding it, and actually just work it out for yourself. More often than not, if you had no understanding of the trigger, go through this process and gain the understanding of the insight into your own behavior, into your trigger and the behavior beyond that, it kind of neutralizes by itself more often than not. Sometimes beyond the process. Sometimes people like to do ritual, or exercise, to ground it, to confirm it, to kind of give it a foundation, to anchor it is the word. It's up to you. Like I said, we're all unique. Triggers are unique, they're similar, but they're unique. And back to what I started with earlier, is to have a good. If you have an open mind, you will see the messages that the triggers give us. I have to follow it. I'm going to be threatened, I'm going to be criticized, I'm going to be offensive, I'm going to be embarrassed, I'm going to feel all kinds of negative emotions about my own triggers. When my heart is open, I'm going to acknowledge and accept it as my own trigger. I'm going to work with it with an open heart and love, and I'm going to embrace it. We have to work on ourselves. An open heart for ourselves. Remember, you can't change other people. Certainly can't change other people. You have no control over what other people do. But we can have full control over what we do. One of the ways to get control over what we do is working with control. Even if we don't neutralize them, even if they are always there, sometimes they will just always be there. Sometimes it's not possible to neutralize. It's really hard to neutralize, and they'll always be there. And it's also fine, but if we have the insight that we need, then the moment we are triggered, we are able to easily stop. We are fully capable of interrupting and regulating that emotion. And we are good at giving ourselves space to sit with it. And we can digest it. Like we've done so many times, it can come naturally to us, we figure it out, and understand. So again, practice makes perfect. The more we work on our triggers, the better we get at hand. It's a simple thing. That's what's so important. Because that's the thing that is probably one of the most difficult challenges in relationship. We trigger each other. We push each other's red buttons. And again, remember I said, I might do or say something that triggers something in you. It's not actually me that triggered you. It's something within yourself that was triggered, but it was as a result of something that I said you did. And again, I'll discuss that more also in the community. Those are very, very common ones to understand. But as long as we understand that our triggers are things that happen in us, about us, we are only people. We are the only people who manage them. I can manage your triggers. You can't manage mine. And again, I know myself and I understand myself and I'm familiar with my triggers. I can way better as that to be. I know myself and understand myself so well that I can actually see the trigger coming and avoid it altogether. And that becomes far less conflict, far less breakups. Okay, so that's all about triggers. And I want to just invite you to check in with me for a moment. Made notes about yourself, you've learned about things that triggered you, how you behave, what you need. You still feel like you are feeling an open heart. Or you maybe feel that right. All have triggers and all have all right, and the seventh step in my 7 steps is once you've done all this work, once you have figured out, it's very important to go back and communicate that with whoever was on the other side. It doesn't help if you just figure it out for yourself. And again, of course, you don't have to share all the nitty-gritty details with the other person, depending on who it is. If it's your partner, you might want to share all the details. If it's a colleague at work, you might not want to share it. But it's very important to go and give a response or feedback, to communicate what happened, to tell your story to the other person or the people who were there, the present when you were triggered, to say something, to give some kind of explanation. And it's not done to justify yourself. It's not done to excuse yourself. It's not done to go and ask for forgiveness. Really done to show yourself to the other person, to share yourself with the other person. Because in sharing of ourselves, in showing ourselves to other people, better connection than we had. So you have to go back and share a bit of the story. Explain yourselves to the people so that they can understand it better. As much as we need to learn and understand our own triggers, people around us can also benefit from learning and understanding what are the things that they do or say or don't do, don't say. Triggers that gets us. So it's a mutual process of growth. There's no one share position, I get goosebumps just thinking about it. I remember the time when I was triggered and I was able to figure it out. Go back to that person, really explain why I was triggered. What made me feel? How I understand better now. And then I'm better able to know. And that is precious. That is so special. It's also absolutely amazing when somebody else comes to me and communicate what they've learned about their trigger to me. It's beautiful to be a witness to that person's growth, to that person brave enough to share their vulnerability with you. It's beautiful. It's commendable. It strengthens our relationship, strengthens our connection. It's beautiful. I wish that for everybody, because we get closer to each other when we do this. It's so much closer to each other. Absolutely. So thank you. A lot of talking about triggers and open hearts. Keep those hearts open always, because then we can give. Okay, time for. There was a mathematician in the late 1700s to the early 1800s called Friedrich Gauss. He wrote something just like. Even though he was a mathematician, this is so relevant for me to get up and go. Truly, it is not knowing, but learning, not possessing, but acquiring, not being there, but getting there, which gives the greatest delight. Truly, it's not knowing, but learning, not possessing, but acquiring, not being there, but getting there, which gives the greatest delight. So it's the process. Journey can go on. My challenge to you is to make a choice today to go and pursue that delight. The delight and the joy that you receive when you learn about yourself. The delight and the joy when you acquire new skills. The delight and the joy that you feel. Get up and knock down and big grow. I challenge you to get up and get growing and be delighted with the community, with all of us. So probably going to be launching Get Up and Grow next week sometime. I've got you on my mailing list, and if you're not on the mailing list, let's click on the button below where it says subscribe to be notified when you welcome you on the mailing list. And if you're interested to go and watch the previous challenge, the recording of it will also be linked and in the description. So it's all been for you to find. And then also connect with me on social media. I'll put the links in the description. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Pinterest. That's about all of them. But most of all, please sign up to be notified. This is going to be awesome. What you've heard here and seen here is just a glimpse of everything experience